tell them, I want you to follow this person for a week, and I want you to come back and tell me what's your impression of this person. Oh, and then you could do a hangout with that person. They could meet that person after deciding what they've modeled, like, you know what I mean? And then say, okay, now what's your impression of this person in their social media? And then what's your impression of this person in real life? And it should mesh. Sometimes it does not, but it should mesh. Okay, that's it. I just thought that.
Somebody just said they saw you on my Periscope. I just got a text comment.
We'll do that with Kim Kardashian.
So in my online class this semester, I've had students create Twitter accounts before, but end up, well, like this is a 3-week, condensed session, so it's different. So it's really hard to fill because I think most of us, it's taken us years to kind of get a reason to go to Twitter, almost, because if there's nothing happening or I retweet something and no one sees it. And so this semester, I don't know, I think, Joe, maybe you've tweeted with one of my students. You might not realize it, but I have to go in because I have to keep track that they're tweeting. It's weird grading Twitter. But it's been, so we just use our little hashtag, and so every week they get a set of assignments, and each week it has been things like, so this week, for instance, it's to find a classroom. And so the problem in Georgia is schools, for the most part, are out. And so you're going to have to go to another state and find a school, and I gave them there some lists online of K-12 classrooms that are pretty active on Twitter. And I want you to interact with the class, and by interact, it's just a tweet or two. But I've seen a couple of my students, so some classrooms, my students will tweet, that's a really interesting book, have you read this book? I read that one in 3rd grade too, or whatever. And the class doesn't respond at all. But then there have been other classrooms that have been going back and forth with my students, which then makes them want to use Twitter more. So that's the way to get free service teachers. They've got to have somebody take, that's awkward, take their stuff. It's okay. And so that helps a lot. But then I had one teacher in Virginia who actually said to one of my students, because they've been good at introducing themselves and saying, I'm in Edit 2000, I'm learning about Twitter. And so one person said, well, if you're looking for a job in Virginia, when you graduate, look me up. And I was like, yes, because that girl is going to stay on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so it's something, so a student, I forget what the interaction with you was, but I was like, oh, that's somebody I follow. I also recommend to people each week for them to follow on Twitter. So if we're learning about student voice, who on Twitter is talking about student voice? You're doing Genius Hour projects, so who talks about Genius Hour to help them build that so I sort of force the PLN, and then they're also expected to follow each other and interact with each other. And so I've done it in previous semesters because a student was doing dissertation research on it, so